What's up everybody, Teancum here with Sew Yeah Quilting. Now in today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how you make this quantum leap quilt using a layer cake and just a little bit of fabric. Let's get started. Now before we dive on into cutting instructions and things like that, let's look at the quilt itself. Now as you can see, our quilt block looks to be this right here. It's got a cool design, almost like a hourglass type look with it, including some flying geese type blocks as well. So it has a really cool look to it. However, the quilt block is even smaller than that. The quilt block itself is just this little square here, and you could even go as far as to say it is only this tiny piece here because they're just mirror images of each other. So it's a super simple quilt, although it looks much more complex, and all you need is just some basic quilting knowledge to be able to make this. So let's dive on into the cutting instructions. So first we're going to pop open our layer cake here. Now this is a layer cake friendly project, which is always nice to see. Now each block, as we're going back to the quilt here, each block represents one 10-inch square. So you want something with a lot of movement, a lot of color, just like the one behind me, or you can keep it more traditional or more simple as well. But let's just flip through here real quick. You can tell I've got a lot of blue, a lot of yellow. Blues and yellows is pretty much the whole quilt here. Now for the tutorial, I'm going to be making an entire quilt block. But all I need for that is I'm going to need one quilt square and some background fabric. So let's dive on into the cutting instructions. Now, the cutting instructions are super simple. We're going to subcut this down into two different sizes. I need three 3-inch squares. So I'm going to be getting that pretty much out of the bottom area here. And then I need 4 2.5 by 6.5 inch strips. Now the math works, although that seems like a lot for just one little square. The math works here. So first I'm going to cut a 3-inch strip right here off the bottom, subcut that to be 3-inch squares, and then from there 2.5-inch strips that will measure 6.5 inches long. So zipping off 3 inches here. So now that I'm here, I'm going to make this 6.5 inches wide because I know that I'm going to be cutting them to be 2.5 inches by 6.5 inches. So I've got a rule at 6.5 inches wide. I'm going to just drop it off here. I'm going to pull this aside, bring this piece back in, and I'm going to subcut it down to be 3-inch squares. 1, 2, which should leave me with about a 1-inch strip. So far, almost no waste, okay? This, I've already gone ahead and made sure it's 6.5 inches wide. So now I just have to subdivide this into 2.5-inch strips. Now, knowing that this is a 10-inch square, I should get exactly 4 out of this. Take your time, do it right the first time. 2.5-inch strips, here we come. 1. So out of one 10-inch square, I got 4 of these and 3 of my 3.5-inch squares. Super easy. If we're going to do the full-size quilt, obviously you're going to repeat this to all of your different 10-inch squares. But we're going to be moving on now to the background. Now the background, I'm going to be using just a simple white today. I just chose simple white today because it goes really well with the collection. However, I could have went with a soft blue, I could have went with a darker tone, maybe even dark gray, or even kind of the dark center of a sunflower, like that brownish color. I could have went with any of those today, but today we're going to just stay kind of with the tried and true, the white. From my white, it's pretty simple, the cutting instructions here. I need 2.5-inch squares, I need 3-inch squares. Let's cut them. That was close. That was close. It can happen to anyone. So guys, like I already said, 2.5-inch squares in white, 3-inch in white, 3-inch in our print, 2.5 by 6.5. Let's go back to the quilt. It's hard to believe that just those little shapes are gonna make up this block here, but it's so simple. So let's go ahead and get to it. We're first gonna start on kind of the centerpiece of this whole quilt, which is these almost flying geese. They're more like snowballed edges, but kind of give you that flying geese shape. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to drop all 4 of these down, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then we're going to mark 8 2.5-inch squares in the white, corner to corner, all the way down diagonally. And then we're going to place them on top of our pieces, and we're going to snowball off the edges. Let's do this. Now that I have these marked, what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay them down directly on top. I want them to kind of like point to each other. You see how they kind of go in that angle pointing towards each other? I want that on every single one of these. So now it's time to start sewing. I'm going to sew directly on each one of these lines all the way down. Do it to both sides, snowball off the edges, and then we're going to iron them out. So now that I have these all sewn, it's time to snowball off the edges, which all that means is I'm gonna cut a 1/4 inch away from my seam line. So now at this point, I've ironed these out, and you can see I've got 4 beautiful, almost flying geese, a little bit different shape, but same idea. And now it's time to make some half square triangles. So I'm gonna set these aside. I already went ahead, because I did it while I was doing my 2.5 inch squares, is I marked my 3 inch squares as well. And we're making half square triangles. I've got my diagonal corner to corner. I'm gonna be sewing on both sides of the line to make my half square triangles, which they'll end up being 2.5 inch half square triangles. So guys, I went ahead and chain pieced those. I'm gonna just use my ruler here, and we're gonna go ahead and cut all the way down. They're still chained together. I'm going to just use my rotary cutter to remove the chain. And now I've got all my half square triangles. Now, it's time to square these up. There's a tool that I like. It's called the Clearly Perfect Slide Trimmer Ruler. And you literally knock off the 2 sides. Now, you don't have to do it this way, so choose whatever way is easiest for you to square up your half square triangles. And again, 2.5 inch square. Boom. Now that I've got my half square triangles done, it's time to make them into the block that we want them to be. Now, essentially speaking, it's 3 going one way, 3 going the other way. I'll show you what I'm talking about here. I've got 1, 2, 3. Now I'm going to just go the opposite direction with my next ones. A pretty simple chain that I'm about to make. We're going to go ahead and sew this up. We're going to sew up our last 2 blocks and then sew those together. We should be all set. But let's lay the whole thing out. Now, I understand that it looks funky, but we know what the final result is, right? Because that's only 1/2 the overall block, but this is actually the block construction. So let's go ahead and just start sewing things together. Let's start with these pieces here, sew them right sides together, sew them into its own row. Then we're gonna sew all these together into its own row, and then slap those 2 together. So I've got this whole section complete, just gotta finish ironing up. Then we're gonna do our half square triangles. Half square triangles, we're gonna sew them all together one by one. So guys, very last step, now that I have my 2 pieces, I'm gonna sew them together, and that will be the end of this quilt block. And guys, just like that, your quilt block is complete. Now, obviously here, the illusion comes when you put 2 blocks together like you're seeing here. It gives it this whole cohesive look, and it looks absolutely amazing and way harder than what it really is. And it's super easy, as we've shown here, guys. A couple of snowball edges and a couple of half square triangles is all you need to make something this intricate. Now with that, guys, if you've liked this video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and don't be afraid to share it with your friends. As always, down in the description below is a free PDF download of this pattern. That way you can print it off, follow along with the video, or maybe share it with one of your friends. Check out SewYaQuilting.com and pick yourself up a layer cake or maybe one of the other many products that we offer. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.